Yo, what's good, meatheads? Hope you're having an amazing day, and welcome to another episode of the Meathead on the Mic podcast. It's your boy, IFBB Pro Matt Butala, and today we're going to be talking about lean bulking and how you can lean bulk like a pro. So, if you want to put on some muscle, but you're afraid of getting fat, and you're sort of skinny fat, or you're skinny, then this is the episode for you. This is an episode that I think you might want to bring your pad and your pen out for. Okay, we're going to break it down in 5 simple steps. We're going to be straightforward to the point and give you the juice, pun intended, the sauce on how to lean bulk. Okay, so pay attention if this is something that you struggle with. All right, so without wasting any time, we already understand that lean bulking is a method of gaining muscle and strength with minimal fat. Okay, that's if you understand lean bulking, then you understand what I just said. If you don't understand lean bulking, then I'm going to repeat it for you. Lean bulking is a method of gaining muscle without getting much fat on your body, right? What you will notice nowadays, or even in the past, is athletes would always prioritize eating a ridiculously high amount of calories, increasing the weight on the scale to just really quickly, just to absurd numbers, just really, really fast, like putting on 30, 40, 50, 60, sometimes in even some cases, even 100 pounds on the scale, right? In terms of how much they add in their overall body weight. And that's something that I think is like really aggressive. If you aim for, if you want to build muscle and you're putting on up to 60, 70, 50 even pounds of just mass overall, and you think that getting that 50 pounds to 100 pounds is going to get you a lot of lean muscle, well, you are sadly mistaken. That's not how it works. All right. It's just not how it works. It just isn't. Like putting on 50 pounds of body weight isn't going to help you gain a lot of lean muscle. You will gain muscle, but the thing is, when you do have to cut the muscle or cut the fat, whenever you have to cut the fat to reveal the muscle, in your cutting stage, or whenever it's summertime and you want to like get lean and you want to show off, or at least you want to show what you have under, you are going to be losing so much more muscle than is actually necessary to lose in that process. Because number one, whenever we are in a diet and we're burning fat, we're also getting rid of other things on our body. We're getting rid of tissues, okay, muscle tissues. We're also reducing water weight, right? Like when we are in a cut, when we are in a deficit, and when we are, losing weight, we are not just losing fat. We're also losing water, and we're also losing muscle because, first of all, your muscle's just going to break down. On top of that, there is water in muscle. So if you're losing water, you're also losing like the size of the muscle. So that's something you have to consider. And if you are the type of person that believes, well, in order to get jacked, in order to get big, I must eat like a fucking pig and get to this level of size where you can't even see, my facial structure anymore, like where you have no definition in your body, then that's a big issue. Right? That's a misconception that a lot of young guys have in the fitness space when it comes to building their body. Because let's be honest, you don't actually need to put on 50 to 100 fucking pounds of just weight to build muscle. Matter of fact, most of that weight will be fat, right? Which is why lean bulking is so amazing. All right. I think honestly, lean bulking is the best thing to do if you want to build muscle, and that's the reason why. Okay, so lean bulking is a method of gaining as much muscle and strength with as little fat gain as possible. And today I'll be sharing with you 5 simple steps on how to effectively lean bulk like a pro. Okay, these are steps that I've used, because don't get it twisted. Just because I'm giving you guys information on how to lean bulk the correct way like a pro doesn't mean that I haven't actually made the same simple mistakes as you guys may have made in the past. Like, yes, I've done it in the past where, I thought in order to get as jacked as possible, I've got to eat like 4, 5, 6,000 calories every single day. And, I'm not going to do cardio. I'm just going to focus on strength and all that shit. And you name it. Anything that you have tried to build muscle, I've probably tried it a million times. And did I get something of it? Yes, absolutely. But when it came to getting cut, when it came to revealing the muscle, it just wasn't worth it, because I almost never kept the amount of muscle that I grew in the process. All right, so let's break it down here. All right, number one, guys, in order to lean bulk, to put on muscle and to minimize the amount of fat that you put on while you build that muscle, you will need to calculate your caloric needs. Okay, and this is going to vary for everybody, But essentially, you're going to have to determine your caloric maintenance needs, which is the amount of calories that you need to just keep your same body weight. And once you have that number, all you got to do is add about 200 to 450 or 500 calories on top of that number and consume that amount of calories every single day during your off season or during your bulk. Okay, so what does this look like? Let's say you do you figure out your let's say you figure out your caloric maintenance number, right? And this number is 3,000. And so in order for you to enter a lean bulk and not bulk too rapidly and not bulk, you know, with a lot of fat on your body, you want to be putting on at least 250 to 450 or 500 calories on that 3,000 calories. So that would be 3,250 or 3,500 total calories that you'd have to consume every single day in order to grow muscle, or as much muscle as you possibly can grow without growing as much fat. Like, you still will put on some fat and water no matter what. It is a bulk of some sort. Anytime you are in a surplus, your body is going to produce fat, or at least store energy as fat, because you're in a surplus. And no matter how hard you train or whatever you're doing, your body isn't really going to burn through everything, right? So some fat gain is necessary, but we want to limit it, which is why we call it lean bulking, right? So you want to be as lean as possible while you're bulking, right? You don't want to be gaining more than 1.5 to 2 pounds per week. Anything more than 2 pounds per week is considered fairly aggressive. 3 pounds per week is extremely fast, and you're most likely going to be fat as fuck at the end of your bulk. So keep that in mind. All right. You want to be able to provide yourself with the energy that it needs for muscle growth while minimizing the fat gain overall. And also, guys, if you're confused on how to, figure out your calorie maintenance numbers, again, it's very different for everybody. It's case specific for every person. Like, the amount of calories someone that is like 6'5" and someone that's 5'5" those two things are going to be different. The amount of calories that they need at different heights, the amount of calories that you need at different weights, they're all going to vary. But you can find out a rough estimate by doing simple math, or if you're really just fucking lazy, you can go on Google and you can just punch it in there, calorie calculator. If you look for a calorie calculator, you will be able to find something that is somewhat accurate for your specific height in your specific build, and then you can run away with that. Again, it's not 100% accurate, so it's going to be a lot of trial and error in the process, but it is a starting point if you don't know what to do. Okay, so that's some free game from me to you. All right, so that's the first thing. The first thing was to calculate your caloric needs. That's something that you need to focus on if you want to build muscle in a lean bulk without putting on a lot of fat and also increasing your strength. Okay, the second thing, guys, the second thing that you need to focus on if you want to lean bulk and to build muscle with reducing the amount of fat you gain overall is prioritizing protein. I know you've heard this. If you haven't heard this, then this is something I'm going to repeat again, and I will probably fucking repeat this again every single time you see me on your timeline or you listen to one of these episodes, because it's really important. If you don't know, protein is what's going to help you build muscle, period, right? Protein is crucial for muscle growth. You should aim to consume at least around 1 to 2 grams of protein per pound of body weight daily. And I say 1 to 2 because you can go up to 2 grams of protein, and that's if you're cutting off a lot of your carbs, per se. Let's say like you're already kind of fluffy. You don't need a lot of carbs, right? You can almost get 2 grams. I wouldn't say get 2 grams. It's kind of overkill for most people. It's still really, really high. And especially if you have like issues processing protein in your body, I would never recommend that. But if you are on calories that are way too low without the carbohydrates, or with a reduced amount of carbohydrates because you want to cut carbs or lower carbs, then you can sort of fill in the gap with fats or protein. I personally would prefer protein myself because it's muscle building. And that's just what I would do. So if I were to, let's say, cut down my carbs by a large majority and do less than 100 grams of carbs, or even around 100 grams of carbs, whatever difference that I would have, I would supplement it with the protein. Okay, it sounds a little bit confusing, but what I'm saying is you don't ever want to starve yourself, ever. Okay, and if you're at a point where you want to reduce a certain type of macronutrient, I always pick protein to increase. All right, so that's just food for thought there. Aim to consume 1 to 2 grams of protein per body weight every single day. So that means if you are 150 pounds, you're getting at least bare minimum 150 grams of protein a day. Okay, and if you're like in an extreme calorie deficit and you're cutting off a lot of carbs, right, I would get even closer to 2 grams of protein. Why? Because you don't have that many carbs. You're still in a deficit. Protein is quite calorie dense, and on top of that, it's very satiating. Protein can help you, essentially quell your hunger while you're in a deficit. And again, this is something that I would not recommend to the average person that just wants to burn some fat. Because if you just want to burn some fat, you wouldn't have to actually get into an extreme calorie deficit. This is something for those bodybuilders that are, really, really cutting it close with their prep, and they're pushing as hard as they possibly can, and they want to remove as much food as possible in their deficit. You're pretty much going to be consuming protein most of the time and carbs selectively around your workouts. And even at that, it would be a very small amount. But that's something for the, I would say, advanced or expert level, right? But if you just want to put on some muscle, you're not even focused on a deficit. You're focusing on a surplus of calories or a maintenance level of calories. Again, you can still put on muscle at maintenance level calories. It just takes longer, but in my opinion, it's better because you put on the least amount of fat when you build muscle at a maintenance stage, as opposed to when you're in a surplus of any kind. You're going to always get a little bit more fat in that process. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? All right, guys. So if you don't already know what's good in terms of protein sources, something that you should be having, I'll break it down. You should be eating chicken. You should be eating turkey, lean cuts of beef, fish, eggs. And if you're a vegetarian, I got something for you too. All right. There are some plant-based options like tofu. If you've ever heard of tempeh, or legumes, beans, and stuff like that, right? So tempeh is something that I've used with one of my best clients who was a vegetarian, or he still is a vegetarian for religious reasons, and we were able to boost up his overall protein intake with it, because I understand there aren't that many options when you're a vegetarian, but when you look, you will find, and if you find it, you should keep it. So he has that, or I would assume that now he still has it in his routine. We don't work together anymore, but we were able to figure out some things that he could keep in his loop so that he can always have something for his protein, even though he's a vegetarian. Because let's be honest, no one likes to eat the same shit over and over again. And you're kind of limited with that if you're a vegetarian, because again, vegetables don't usually have the highest amount of protein. Okay, so again, let's also not factor this out. I talked about some of the whole foods or some of the vegetarian options, but let's not factor out some quick and convenient sources of protein like whey isolate, protein powder, and protein snacks and bars. And see, guys, like, you can use them if you're in a pinch, or if you're on the road, or you're trying to fit in your last few grams of proteins without overshooting the amount of calories that you're consuming, whether you're in a deficit or whether you're bulking. But I personally would always recommend eating whole foods, as they carry more micronutrients and vitamins. It's simple as that. Like, it's better for you to eat the whole food sources instead of having the processed refined sugars with these whey isolates and stuff like that, right? Like, it's not the worst thing in the world, but you can still sort of get by on it if you're in a pinch, or if you're just trying to fit in a gap there. But I personally would not rely on whey isolates for more than 20% of my overall protein intake, and same thing goes with the protein cookies, protein bars, things of that sort. Okay, so keep that in mind. You can use them, but don't abuse them. That's what I think honestly works best. All right, so the third thing, guys, when it comes to a balanced micronutrient intake, all right, you heard me say it, a balanced micronutrient intake. What is this? What is a balanced micronutrient intake? It seems a little bit tricky, but it's actually more simple than you think. So micronutrients, what are they? Micronutrients are things like minerals. They're vitamins. When you look at the back of a nutrition package and you see all those like vitamin A, vitamin C, all this stuff, and like, those are the micronutrients. You want to make sure that you're getting as many of them as you possibly can, or at least the food selection that you have is rich in micronutrients. Why? Because if you can't, or if you don't get your micronutrients through your your whole foods, you're going to have to supplement them with supplements, and that gets expensive. And it's also, I personally wouldn't recommend it, because you can literally just decide to eat whole foods and get those things in there. But that's for the other portion of this conversation. There's macronutrients as well. So I don't want you to get confused between micronutrients and macronutrients. So micronutrients are the vitamins, the minerals, the things that I just talked about. Macronutrients, guys, again, this is something that a lot of people don't know what to sort of do with. Like, they know what it is, but they don't know what to do with macronutrients. It's very, very simple. It's very straightforward. Macronutrients are your proteins, your carbs, and your fats. And this is going to help you organize how you're going to sort of eat, okay? Or at least what types of foods you're going to prioritize in order to succeed with your lean bulk. So, guys, if you want to figure out your macronutrient intake, you want to make sure that it's balanced. What you got to do is divide your daily calories, right, into the three macronutrients that I just talked about. All the calories that you're going to be eating in a day are going to be divided between protein, carbs, and fats. Okay. Typically, a balanced macronutrient split is around 40 to 50% carbs, 25 to 35% fats, and 20 to 30% protein. But if you are in a lean bulk, you want to prioritize protein. So, protein should be the highest next to carbohydrates, right? So, you can have carbs is going to be most of what you eat, regardless. Carbs is going to be most of what you eat. All right. 1 second here. Just got a little alarm. Cool. All right. So carbs is going to be most of what you eat, regardless. It's going to comprise most of the calories. The next thing you're going to have outside of that is your protein. And then last but not least, you're going to have your fats. Okay. You can switch it around. Again, the reason why I talked about it in the normal fashion about like carbs being the most, fats being the second most, and proteins being the least is because I also want you to understand that, yes, we want 1 gram of protein per 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, but also some people have issues with digesting protein. So if you have proteinuria, if you've done your, let's say, blood work and you figured out like you have an issue with your body's ability to metabolize protein, stuff like that, you don't want to be consuming way too much protein just because you heard it on a podcast or because your favorite influencer is having 300 fucking grams of protein. You have to actually go in, check your body, figure out what your body is good at processing, or if you're even in a state where you could process the diet that is required for you to build the muscle that you want to build, and then you can move accordingly. Okay, so I know it sounds a little bit counterproductive, but again, the reason why we talked about it in that fashion is so that you can actually do the work, do the diligence, and figure out if you're even in a position to prioritize protein. Okay, because it can get dangerous if you have issues with digesting and processing protein. So that's food for thought there. Go do your blood works and figure out with your doctor if everything's a-okay. And if everything's a-okay, then you're good to go. All right. I would still say carbs, 40 to 50% of is what you're going to be eating. Carbohydrates, which is your rices, your breads, your pastas, and things like that. The second thing in the list will be protein, and without will be up to literally, it could be up to 40%, honestly, depending on where your carbs are. But I'd say again, 25 to 35% protein, and then the last but not least, fats. You don't have to intentionally. What I do is like I don't intentionally focus on eating fats. Whatever the remainder of the calories is outside of my carbohydrates and my protein sources tends to just be my fats. I only really try to manipulate it if I'm trying to get a specific outcome with conditioning, if I'm getting leaner. But if I'm growing, I don't really focus on let's eat these amounts of fats. It's just the remainder of my calories would be the fats, right? So don't put too much of emphasis on that. Focus more on the carbs to protein ratio or protein to carbs ratio based off of your body's ability to metabolize protein in a healthy and safe way. Okay, so guys, you want to adjust this on your personal preferences. You want to adjust this on your food selection, okay, and the way your body and your digestive system reacts to your overall physique or training abilities and your goals. So the way your physique sort of responds to what you eat and the timeline that you have to achieve whatever goal it is that you want in terms of lean bulking. Like let's say you want to be whatever it is, 160 pounds and lean, but right now you're like 130, 140 pounds and you're lean right now. You're gonna have to understand that the foods that you select have to align to that goal in whatever time frame that you have. Typically, the shorter the time frame, the more fat you're going to gain. So you don't want to do that. You want to eat closer to a maintenance level and elongate it for a longer period of time. So you build more muscle, more lean muscle at that throughout the period. But again, the only catch is that it takes more time to do. And what you eat outside of what your goal is has to be, we'll say, thumbs up by your body, right? If your digestive system isn't okay with it and you can't digest certain foods properly, that's when you have to start to adjust based on your personal preferences or at least your body's preferences. And when I'm saying adjust, I mean like you're going to switch the foods that you're eating. If you have trouble digesting bread or digesting certain types of rice, you want to experiment and switch around and figure out, okay, maybe this is a little bit better for me. Or even proteins, guys. You know, sometimes your body, and most people have this issue where red meat just isn't easily digestible. So you don't want to rely on that. You want to switch it around. Maybe it's chicken breast, but again, chicken breast, a lot of us love it because it's easy to digest, but some people have slight allergies to foods. Okay, you can have a slight allergy to chicken breast, and that could give you maybe skin breakouts, or it could do whatever it can mess up whatever it is in your body, give you an adverse reaction. You can go get your allergy tests. Again, I would recommend doing it around the time that you do your blood work and figure out which foods you are more or less susceptible to, and which foods you're more or less likely to respond to in a positive or negative way, so that you can have all the information that you need, not just based off of your taste buds and the foods you actually like to eat, but what your body actually decides to respond to. Okay. So just be aware of that. Food selection does matter. And the way your digestive system and overall body and your physique and your energy levels in and out the gym, those things, they're all variables you have to consider when it comes to developing your macronutrient intake, your micronutrient intake, so on and so forth. Okay. It's not just as straightforward as I'm going to eat chicken and rice because, chicken protein, carbs, rice, and that's going to get me jacked. Like, there are things that you have to look at to get more optimal results, or at least just better results that your body doesn't have to fight against. All right, so do yourself the due diligence and figure out the thing that you need in order to give you the best possible chance at success when it comes to building muscle in a lean bulk, and also doing it in a healthy manner. All right, because you don't want to be constipated the whole time. Take it from me. All right, so the fourth thing, guys, that you want to pay attention to is progressive resistance training. You've probably heard about it, to gradually increase the volume, whichever volume it is, whether it's the weight, the amount of sets, or both, and the intensity, which is the rep ranges and or the tempo of your workouts to stimulate muscle growth. This is super important, guys. Like, when you do this correctly, it could be the difference between you simply getting bigger versus you growing muscle and getting aesthetic while also getting bigger. All right, let's cut it down the middle here. Strength training is essential for building lean like muscle, right? If you want to build muscle in general, whether it's lean or not, let's not debate that. Strength training is essential for lean bulking. Okay, focus on compound exercises like squats, like deadlifts, like bench presses, and overhead presses, provided that your body has the biomechanical range of like motion for you to do that. Like, if you can bench press, do it. If you can deadlift, do it. If you can squat, do it. But if you can't, or your mobility kind of sucks and your biomechanical range of motion is kind of shit, you're gonna work on that. All right, I want you to work on that. Try your best. Okay, try your best. Go to physio, work on stretches. I personally stretch in the sauna post workout every single day, and it helps me a lot with my mobility and my range of motion. So strength training is definitely something that's amazing for lean bulking, right? You should focus on those compounds. However, so is hypertrophy. Okay, so is hypertrophy. And a lot of people go, well, if I'm bulking, I just want to focus on lifting heavier shit. Well, sure, yeah, I hear you. But at the same time, hypertrophy is also very important. Why? Because you should factor in some kind of machine, dumbbell, or accessory work to make sure that you are developing a symmetrical physique. Okay, getting bigger doesn't necessarily mean getting better. I mean, for some people, you get what I'm saying. But guys, jokes aside, like, let's break it down. Having a symmetrical physique is what you want. If you're lean bulking, it's because you don't want to put on a whole fuck ton of fat while you put on muscle, which is probably because you care about your aesthetics and the way that you look as you grow muscle. And if that's the case, what I'm saying is you should combine the two. Strength, because let's be honest, the stronger you get, the more tolerability you'll have to endure harder workouts, which can give you a positive reaction on the amount of muscle you can build in your physique. Okay? Like, if we're just talking about that, then you can understand that. And the other side is that there's a difference between getting bigger and stronger versus, just getting bigger, stronger like a powerlifter, and then also having a more aesthetically pleasing and symmetrical physique. Again, this is lean bulking like a pro. And when I say pro, I'm talking about pro bodybuilder. Okay, if you want to lean bulk properly and actually improve your physique, not just like get bigger because bigger and stronger, like that's all you care about is being bigger and stronger, but you actually want to be bigger, stronger, and better, then you have to understand this. Okay, the only way we can develop a really aesthetic or close to a pro level physique, or even a pro level physique, is by focusing on symmetry. And symmetry is based on these two things, or these three things. The three things that symmetry is based on when it comes to developing your physique is number one, genetics, which is your muscle insertions, natural imbalances with your physique. Like some people have, like if you're just look at your arms or your legs, your left bicep could be bigger than your right bicep, or your left quad could be bigger than your right quad. These are natural imbalances. It's genetics and the way that you just operate in your day. Also, the fullness of your muscles. Like these are just genetics. That's the first thing. The second thing, guys, is to look in the mirror and balance your strong points with your weak points. To develop symmetry, we have to be objective, like very objective, which is why it helps to have a coach to look at your physique and say, okay, this is what's good, this is what's bad, especially if we're coming from a strictly aesthetic angle. If we're not talking about like, oh, let's burn fat because, we're improving our health here and so on and so forth. If we're focusing on like sculpting out our physiques and developing a really really impressive aesthetic physique, we have to be objective and look in the mirror and balance out the strong points with weak points. Some people are top heavy, some people have got really really great upper bodies and shitty legs, some people it's vice versa. So going to the mirror and being able to be objective with that and saying like, okay, well, I've got to improve this part of my body or that part of my body, that will help you sort of create the rubric or like the blueprint on how to actually get your physique aesthetic and symmetrical. Okay, number three, guys, stay away from injuries. So again, I said strength training is important. It's amazing, but you have to be able to sort of discipline yourself when it comes to the amount of weight that you're lifting, because you're not a power lifter if you are focusing on lean bulking. Like, let's just be clear here. That's not the goal here. You got to stay away from ego lifting and doing things that could potentially tear your muscles. Because let's be honest, there's nothing more ugly in a pretty physique than a torn muscle belly, right? It'll ruin a physique. A torn muscle belly will ruin your physique, right? And if you care about symmetry, if you care about aesthetics, if you want to lean bulk like a pro, then you're going to be mindful of potential injuries and not train in a way that you can induce potential injuries, which is why I personally think power building is nonsense if you're a natural lifter or if you actually care about developing an aesthetic symmetrical physique while being responsible with the way that you lift, because you don't have to lift a fucking house in order to look like a fucking Greek god. You don't actually have to. And if you don't believe me, look at the greatest bodybuilders of all time and tell me how much they lift. I mean, outside of Ronnie Coleman, because he's just a beast. But then again, what happened with the injuries? Point proven. Okay, guys, so I want you to understand that when you're designing your training protocol, all of these three things should be considered, as well as being objective with the way that you look in the mirror. Because let's be honest, in order to make necessary changes in anything, you have to be real with yourself. And if you can't be real with yourself, then get someone that can be real with you, like a professional, to look at you and say, hey, you got weak calves or you got weak shoulders, and we need to build this and we need to maybe tone this down. Okay? To have that sort of objective outlook would enhance your protocol so that you can continue developing an aesthetically symmetrical and pleasing physique while putting on size. That's what we call lean bulking, guys. It's not just bulking. Otherwise, you'd just be getting fat and strong, which is a powerlifter thing, and then that's its own animal at that point. Okay. Tip number 5, guys. The last thing that we're going to be bringing up when it comes to lean bulking like a pro is to monitor progress and adjust. Again, this is very straightforward. It sort of does taper into what we were just talking about with objectivity and being able to look at the mirror and say, I need to change this, I need to change that in order to get a said result, guys. But you got to keep track of everything. Keep track of the weight that you're gaining per week, right? Monitor your body composition. Like, so if you have a certain level of conditioning that, like right now, like you have abs or you have lines in your legs, sort of pay attention to that as you get bigger, and notice when things start to get blurry or when you start to get quote unquote too fat, and then you can sort of adjust so that you can sort of stay there, improve your body composition, build more muscle at that weight, and then continue to go up. There's no sense in completely just shooting the trajectory to the moon and losing your conditioning all along the way, just because on paper you're supposed to be lean bulking, because these calories are the calories that are lean bulking for you. Not everything is that linear. Some points in times you will have to do mini cuts. Some points in time you'll have to eat a little bit more. But the whole thing is, you'll know this only when you keep track of your progress by monitoring your body composition, your strength gains, your energy levels, the way you look in the mirror, all of those things. Okay, so adjust your calorie intake and your macronutrient intake as needed. Okay, if you're gaining weight too rapidly, reduce your surplus. If you're making progress, if you're not making progress, consider increasing your calories. Be patient. Again, the variable here is between 250 to 500 calories. You've got to be patient and you have to be observant. You have to be objective and be willing to design a protocol that is going to allow you to improve your strong points, improve your weak points, balance out and sort of water down your strong points, and allow you to develop an aesthetic physique so that you're not just lean bulking, but you're lean bulking like a pro and you're actually developing it like the most aesthetic physique that you could possibly develop. Okay, lean bulking is a slower process than traditional bulking, but it results in a higher muscle to fat ratio, which also is going to increase your metabolism, which is going to make it a lot easier for you to actually stay there. Again, assuming that you're natural. Guys, remember, consistency is key. Lean bulking requires patience and a long-term commitment to your fitness and nutrition plan. All right. And if you're unsure about this, if you don't know about specific calorie, macronutrient needs, and you're considering doing this, but you don't know what the fuck to do, reach out to me. I'm literally here. I do this for other people. I've done this for myself for years. I turned pro naturally using most of the things that I talked about in today's episode. All right. If that's you, you can DM me on Instagram at Matt Butale, MattButale, or on TikTok, or drop a comment in the YouTube if you're watching this there, or on Facebook. You can find me anywhere. That's it. That's all. If you like this episode, guys and girls, I hope you share it with a friend. Okay. Thank you so much for your precious time and attention. Let's embrace your inner meathead together. It's been nice chatting. Hope you like what today's topic was about. IFBB Pro Matt Butale signing out. Boom. All right, guys, we've been getting on the longer side of podcast episodes recently because I just decided, like, I want to be giving you guys a little bit more value and teaching you guys more about what I know. So what better way to do that than to spend a little bit more extra time with you when I'm on the air and, just give out as much information as I could possibly give in the 30-minute window. All right. So Lucas says, can you DM me? Lucas, you send me a DM. I'm going to actually be on a phone call right now. Send me a DM so your name's at the top of the messages. And once you send me that DM, I will be able to reach out with you. But don't just DM me to DM me. Don't just start a conversation just to start a conversation. Ask me for the type of help that you need, and then I'll reach out to you to try to help you out. All right. That's it. That's all. I'm already behind here on schedule, guys, on TikTok. So carnivore diet, you should check out my friend Tristan Lee. Go on his YouTube page. He talks about it. He switched off of it now. It has its benefits if you have certain issues with your digestion and stuff like that. And if you have different goals, then it helps. But definitely you should check that out. You can shoot me a message and we can catch up later on. Someone says, how does someone gain weight and muscle at the same time? I just explained it. If you were listening to this episode, you can either eat at maintenance level calories or a slight surplus and then build muscle at the same time by training really hard, by applying tip number 4, which is progressive resistance. Just scanning through quick, because I don't want to leave you guys without questions answered. Do you think I'm not answering stupid shit? Nope, no stupid shit. Okay, Johnny boy, I hope that helps. But guys, I hope you guys have an amazing day. I'm out of here. We'll be back again with another episode of the Meathead on the Mic podcast.